Well, good morning to you. It's the morning pod speechcast, so to speak. Here with Michael Crosby here, and yes, I am a POTUS candidate. Well, some of you obviously caught the debate. We had, well, I don't know what we would call it. That's a different debate. I mean, statistically, we had a lot of inconsistencies there. I don't think I've ever seen a debate in modern history where we had so many inconsistencies coming from both candidates. It's frightening in a way that there seemed to be a lack of focus onto positive forward-moving issues. There certainly wasn't anything there that helped me out, so to speak. I mean, my campaign is so much more superior, but that's because I've worked on it for decades, specific to issues development and what's going to be needed. So to me, it was like watching a couple of kindergartners arguing. Although in truth, kindergartners don't fib as much. We even had tactics shared involving, well, people's buddies being eaten, consumed. And that actually is something that has been an issue on and off over the years. Now, there's two ways to look at this. Number one, my SAR security proposal includes protecting your buddy, by the way. That's kind of part of the matrix that's already in the mass package of the security matrix. In other words, you have the border check, the pre-border estimations, you have the AI assistive tooling for helping to prepare paperwork and doing pre-assessments of people based upon their movement, kind of a body language interpretation, assistive, so to speak. But everything else is included. You have a security aspect of the parties are basically on probation, you could say, but the parties also in many cases are claiming that they're being pursued by violent people. So there's a security matrix for them as well if they're being accepted in on those pretenses, so to speak. However, this means that no crime can be committed by these people that isn't going to be re-examinable by the SAR data. And that would include kidnapping and killing people's pets and selling them as food. So I just figured I'd put that out there because that's just kind of part of the matrix to understand that people could possibly commit a lot of crimes, and those could be things like kidnapping people's pets. So the SAR security system that I'm putting out, instead of building a wall and going with ultimate data and tracking capabilities and after the fact information recovery, it's very large on after the fact data, because basically a lot of these satellites, the SARs, are already up there. They're already in space in place producing data. What's needed is more databases to interpret that data, so that you can get more people accessing more data on a micro level, focusing in. I recall Harris talking about the slavery and different prosecutions she did, and I was a little bit annoyed by the fact that the reality behind some of the investigations on those items dealt with particular officers in question that were very, very, very dedicated to doing their job correctly. In fact, some of them in many ways were being discouraged from doing their job, and they were upset about that, and they continued on their investigations. And I really don't like other people taking credit for long-term hard work that other agents and officers did. And in some cases, some of them risked their career, and there were not that many investigations. If you go look it up, you will find that there are not that many investigations. And in fact, some of the best investigations, I believe, were done by Highway Patrol officers. And so, it's I kind of didn't like to see Harris taking credit for other people's work and other people who were pushing issues forward. Basically, people committed to their oath to the Constitution and getting their jobs done. So I felt that was not correct for her to take credit nationally for something that I do not feel that she deserves credit for, quite frankly. I mean, even though you can talk about that there's risk, because prosecutorial efforts are generally the next step up. You have the investigator level, which also does arrest and whatnot, and goes to the courts to prep and get warrants and taps and whatnot. But the finalization of prosecutors accepting cases and moving them forward, this is really not indicative of recognizing the people who did the initial recognition and the very hard work. And by the way, those are those agents and officers, those are the ones who are actually taking more risks, because them being discovered, starting up involving in certain types of investigations, they would be more at risk than the prosecutors, who have a far larger army of security matrices around them. I could make issue with a lot of the different things that were said, and surprisingly, usually Democratic candidates don't say too many things that you would be able to fact check and make a lot of issues with, but there's a lot of items to make issue with there, and among those items deal with people, Harris falsely claiming in many areas she was at the head of the game of stuff, and that's not true. And I mean, we have the blacklisting in California, my campaign being blacklisting. We have Harris's long-term commitment to not prosecuting bad police officers that were interfering with campaigns and harassing and attacking candidates, myself, since I'm a first-hand witness, obviously. And Arkansas, of course, investigated it and came to the same conclusions, that they were harassing my campaign and harassing a candidate. Yet Harris is among those who repeatedly would be with those that would be stopping extradition of those who were committing those civil rights, and among those that would be committing attacks on the process of election. There are a lot of other important aspects. I mean, California, basically, if you blacklist a candidate, as I was blacklisted, and the state owes me money, and then the state does not want to forward money after they've shut down all businesses, and I can't even get labor reimbursement coverage respective to going out and doing door knocking and getting those petitions signed, so to speak, and going out to those public areas where you can get a hold of large numbers of signatures, which is basically the only way you could do it and not starve if that's all you're doing as a person that's working. When that gets shut down, the way they shut it down, basically, among the entire array of the all-encompassing shutdown, the state owed me money and would not pay. So when I said, look, you owe me money, I want the $6,000 ballot fee made for my gubernatorial run to get on the ballot, and I have the minimum signatures, they would not comply. And that is flat out election rigging. There's no doubt about it. That is election rigging in that particular area, pertaining to that area of the ballot. So that invalidates a lot of different things. And what's important is the entire startup sequence, regardless of how that cycle comes out, means that I've been cheated. I want my votes. I've been cheated. I want my votes. That's over 10 million voters in California that would have seen me on the ballot and knew my name. I would have been a household name in California if I was not blacklisted, if those elections were not rigged. Now, the importance here is that would have made a massive difference in the startup of the presidential campaign, as there would have been at least, again, a dozen RVs. There should have been a total of 18 hitting the road. But again, we have to include the various players for their wrongdoing of how they aided and abetted other parties and continued to allow parties, and by the way, continuing to this day, to allow parties that are a threat to be at large and potentially a danger to me and my campaign, as well as to national security. So in effect, there were numerous items there occurring in the debate that, frankly, at the moment, I don't have time to go through all of them intensively. That's going to be a lot of work and get a lot of fact-checking out there so people can see the actual documents of the actual truth of what happened, because there's a lot of angles of items that aren't covered here. There are people that have laid forth different opinions on interpreting information respective to, for instance, the violence that had been projected against my campaign. So when you're at an investigative state and some people are suggesting that the fragments of information need to be further investigated, but some of the initial facts indicate some people were suggesting that they believed that it was Trump campaign people that were responsible for some of the violence against my campaign. Now, without doing a more complete analysis, those suggestions are noted. But the base reality that what we have in hard copy in hand is blacklisting, determined beyond the shadow of a doubt repeatedly from high-ranking officials in California. And this would be Shirley Weber, Secretary of State. This would be Julie Su, involved in her end of blacklisting. This would involve the California AG's office at multiple areas, multiple times, multiple levels, which also, of course, would include Kamala Harris. So we have to bring out the real facts that I was a filed candidate for the 2008 period to run for president, and I was a candidate each and every time, which means she started her presidential campaign in 2020. She can't participate in dereliction of duty and aiding and abetting parties who are attacking another candidate so that she can benefit. And that seems to be the case. That really does seem to be reflective from the clear facts that are hard facts, that are undeniable facts, that are in hand, by the way, which have been, many of which have been displayed for more than a year and a half on Twitter. So understanding that these facts were being displayed before she was even a presidential candidate, when I was a declared presidential candidate, this does not bode well. Does not bode well at all, because here we have the media that has also had these clear facts disclosed to the media. I can't emphasize enough the fact that there are more than 100 communications, to major news entities. We're talking NBC, ABC, CBS, Meet the Press. We're talking numerous media disclosures, more than 100, displaying clear facts of election rigging in California, displaying irrefutable evidence involving attacks against my campaign. This is deep, undeniable evidence. But we don't have that currently being reflected in the election state as things are going on. Now, this is very important, because I'm going to go to that little section where I'm going to say I don't want to hear people start whining when I freeze the delegates in Washington and say foul. No, you can't count these delegates because California can't have their delegates counted because they're involved in election rigging that is ongoing. And again, I have already stated out some of the clear participants that have already been verified, and that includes Kamala Harris. So the mistrust at this point in time, when the media repeatedly had abundant, clear evidence placed directly in their hands concerning the facts of me, a presidential candidate, coming under attack by people like Julie Su, Shirley Weber, multiple AGs, which include Harris. It's very important for people to know this is the truth. The truth is atop the table right here, right now, and it's been on X. It's been on X. You can go through all those tweets. There's over 15,000 tweets there. I'm sure you can find something to help you verify the truth. And of course, right in this, I'm going to include some proof. There will be documents displayed throughout visually to interpret an understanding of the blacklisting, an understanding of the communications, an understanding of the demand for money to be granted and credited so that I could be placed on the ballot. Those documents are clear. If you read these documents that are displayed visually, these are real documents. These are the actual documents, the actual real McCoy. And the mistrust and the unfortunate actions involving the media's failure to investigate and failure to cover some of this material that has been shared beyond the shield area is a mistrust to citizens that basically there's a lot of truth out there and there's items going on, and it's not going to be a surprise. The media is going to have no surprise when I seize delegates. They already know that I've laid way to seize all the delegates because of these illegal actions. You know, this evidence of violence against my campaign and blacklisting, acts of war, is irrefutable. This is irrefutable evidence. You know, so, I mean, the concept that you could basically have 5-8 parties involved in a series of involvement that either directly or indirectly is responsible, is liable for the loss of 18 mobile broadcast RV archives. I mean, this is phenomenal. You know, that, again, a million people a day would see 12 RVs in Los Angeles. Put them on the Los Angeles freeways all day, and you would have a million eyes easily seeing those vehicles. So to step out here and say in truth that my campaign has obviously come under extreme multiple areas of attack, and that some of the witnesses involved are describing certain people that apparently are somehow associated to Trump and decentralized Trump influences to people to go out and involve themselves in violence. Now, the interesting thing here is these facts can't be verified because why? We have Shirley Weber, Julie Su, the AGs of California, which, of course, there are items that go all the way back to Kamala Harris, that are basically not paying their bills so that what? Actual investigations that are ongoing, real investigations, real prosecutions, real prosecutions are not being able to be done at the speed that they need to be done. So why would these parties be inhibiting investigation as people are running around saying that Kamala Harris is prosecuting Trump? That's a ridiculous notion. You know, it's a very offensive analogy. It's very offensive to those of us who have been shot at by people that we're still trying to get apprehended. It's very offensive to those of us who are candidates that have had extreme acts of violence focused against us when we're involved in investigations and we're the ones trying to get the prosecution all done. And we're being impeded by people who are stepping up, grandstanding, falsely claiming that somehow that in this analogy that they're the ones prosecuting. That's a lie. That's a lie. We just looked at the evidence that's visually there, and we know beyond the shadow of a doubt that's a lie. You know, so, you know, we have apparently the nation watching in horror as a type of two styles of candidates are doing things that we've never, ever seen in debates before. Not at these levels. This is just incredible. So candidates like me who are trying to get archives repaired, get national security information retrieved. It needs to be retrieved immediately at all costs. But here we have parties impeding the process of justice. Who are the parties who have impeded the process of justice? Julie Su, Shirley Weber, the California current AG's office, former AG's office, Kamala Harris, impeding the justice process, proved beyond the shadow of a doubt by the state of Arkansas that investigated it. You know, so there are those of us that have to deal with the truth. And when we put the truth on the table, and we don't even get a reasonable number of people to give us the time of day when we have the truth, when there is extreme violence, when people are shooting at me, trying to kill me, when as we respond to different people in high office, there seems to be apparent stooges sent out with badges to harass even more. This is a RICO situation that involves high-ranking officials in California. Situation, again, review the evidence that just was put in front of your eyes. This is irrefutable. Irrefutable. This is not a bunch of social media fabricated BS. This is real evidence, real violence. This is the truth. And people need to understand this truth, and the media needs to act more responsibly, respective to the evidence showing interference in the process of the elections, and stop ignoring the evidence that has been presented repeatedly more than 100 times. More than 100 times, packets of disclosure have been given to major media networks. That's NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, Foreign News Service, BBC. So, there are some of my comments to start out with. I'm going to follow up with some of these other items because I have the best economic plan. I'm the guy that's won 2 awards so far for the best recognized AI super economy in the history of the world. Yet I'm the guy that can't get government officials to cooperate to retrieve 18 mobile RV broadcast vehicles. I mean, this is ridiculous. These things have computers in them. These things have information pertaining to national security. How can we have lunacy? Lunacy coming from high-ranking officials in California, refusing to turn over emergency management budget, refusing to turn over monies already owed, desperately needed to retrieve stolen information on the move that pertains to national security. The criminal violations here are staggering. These items must be addressed, and that is why you are getting them here now today. And again, irrefutable evidence in hand is moving forward, and you're seeing it here now today. I want to thank you for your time. My name's Michael Crosby. I am, yes, running for POTUS.